lane, if this does end up being a Coddle or Zfreak Coddle, Coddle Brewmaster, it's just terrible. Nobody wants to go to that lane. It just feels absolutely awful. Cinderbrew does so much damage. The Illuminite spam, you just can't walk up to any waves. And Clinks, a safe laner that, as good as he is just out in front. It's going to be taking so much damage. And now that I say that, I am thinking a little bit more about ForZoomer's lineup. Maybe it is just going to be the Moo Beastmaster, and then this is going to be a 5 Brewmaster, because we've seen Husky. They're just so flexible on ForZoomers, honestly. All of their heroes could be swapped around in whatever configuration they want, but they already have such good synergy that their lineup has just been pretty beautifully crafted. I think really anyone could go anywhere and they would be very happy with their lane setup. Everyone kind of has an advantage, even versus the Bane, which is supposed to be that 1v2 lane winner.
And the Mirana coming out for the 4 Gringos side, so now you have that sort of old school tried and true combo. The Bane into the Mirana is some guaranteed lockdown to work with. Of course, don't really think we're going to see that in the lane too much. The 2 supports may not be all that active, but later on, when we get into that mid-game stage, if you can set up with a Nightmare into an Arrow, then your Clinks and your Night Stalker basically have a hand-delivered opportunity to find those kills. So maybe 4 Gringos are going to look to push the tempo a little bit, try and take advantage of that lockdown in the mid-game stage.
Yeah, and it does feel like they had to go for a hero like the Mirana just because they really don't have that much lockdown. If they end up in one of those really long fights where they end up using the grip a little bit too early, or maybe they use the grip and it immediately gets canceled, they need to rely on something else. Is the Mirana going to be enough? That's a different question, but I think that's where 4 Gringos, they need to find a more active mid laner, whether it's going to be the Tiny. The Puck would have been great, but of course banned out. We might see the Void Spirit as well. They need a mid laner that's going to provide you some of that really initial disable, because with this Night Stalker pick, as good as it is versus the Keeper of the Light, you need someone that will finally go in. I think that's why they banned out the Storm Spirit all the way back in that second phase for 4 Zoomers, just trying to protect themselves as much as possible because they don't want to get initiated on. They want to start the fight with this Brewmaster split, kite you out. If you commit the grip, immediately follow it up with either a hook shot or a Beastmaster Roar, and then the fight's basically over. 4 Gringos need to decide very quickly when they need to get out here, because if they stay in these fights for too long, I think 4 Zoomers are playing exactly in their wheelhouse. They want these super long fights. They want to get off 3, 4 of those blinding lights, those axes. They just want to keep you in the fight as long as possible, where 4 Gringos, they want to get in, get their kills, probably with the Dark Ascension, and then fly away, because otherwise they're just going to get shredded.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes, though, in terms of them finally sort of stringing that all together. One last ban for the 4 Gringos side, though. So very much looking at Envy Heroes here. That's really the only thing that's still up in the air at this point. The Luna taken out previously, so ET, as you were mentioning, those illusion-based heroes that Envy very much favors. And, okay, not exactly an illusion-based hero there, but the Bloodseeker going to be taken away with that final ban.
Yeah, Envy just loves the Bloodseeker. It's gotten so many buffs in its early phases. It's a hero that we've really been seeing more and more and more of, as well as just playing really well versus the Night Stalker. You just waste so much time in that Dark Ascension that it just feels awful to play versus. Even though the Bloodseeker, I think, does naturally struggle to get on top of that Clinks, you just don't want to force your Night Stalker in such a bad position, I think, as well as giving that thirst vision for these heroes that should be invis. So it just feels like that would be the cleanup crew. A messy fight breaks out and then Eternal Envy comes in, kills everybody with the Bloodseeker. You just don't want it to happen. And I think with the Kunkka ban as well from 4 Zoomers, they're protecting their zoo a little bit here. They have to be aware of that Night Stalker shard. They know that there's a timing that they have to play around. We'll have to see how early Moo is able to get that Helm of the Overlord, because it does provide you that little bit of safety. And, okay, NVTB. Okay. Seen this a million times.
Yeah, it's a comfortable hero, that's for sure, and that is going to shore up the damage output on that 4 Zoomers side as well, assuming the TB gets the farm, but it's Envy. You're pretty certain he's going to get the farm unless something absolutely disastrous happens. So 4 Zoomers getting something that they're going to feel comfortable with throughout multiple stages in the game. Meanwhile, for the 4 Gringos side, well, presumably looking for that mid option here. We'll see really what they want. They need a little bit of, maybe not everything, but quite a few boxes need to be ticked. You need damage. You need someone who can be relatively durable, and someone who's going to be able to make some plays here as well. I suppose Clinks and Night Stalker can be relied upon in that front, but you would like to have your third core also be that sort of active player.
Yeah, and for me, it's got to be the Void Spirit, the Ember Spirit.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they will just go with the Void Spirit. And as well, mentioning that with the Terrorblade slotted up, okay, they're actually moving it around. This is a mid Brewmaster. Okay. I was going to say with this TB pickup, this has got to solidify it as a Husky Brew, and then it's going to be a Gunner mid Coddle, but no, they swap it around. These lanes are so annoying for four Gringos to deal with at the end of the day, though. There was really no losing for four Zoomers, no matter how they ended up laning this, but Brewmaster versus Void Spirit, that's going to be a little bit easier for kits, I think, but we'll have to see if I eat my words. I really haven't seen this match. I don't think anybody's seen this matchup for a very long time.
Yeah, it's not exactly popular, and I think that's maybe putting it a little bit politely. Meanwhile, for the side of four Gringos, we see Lil Nick on the Mirana. Giant has picked up the Night Stalker. So this is the only thing with the stand-in situation or roster switch-up situation that we mentioned earlier on. Not 100% locked in on who's going where. They could potentially switch things up. Obviously, the stand-ins you would assume would just be playing the position of the player that they're taking, but that's not always the case. So we'll have to wait and see exactly who goes where on that front, as we should be loading in. First game of the day in our first series, and already looking like a bit of an exciting one. We've got some heroes that, well, maybe people aren't the happiest to see in the likes of the Coddle, but good matchup, some switching things up with Gunner mid on the Brew, so BT, I think we're in for a good one to start off the day.
Yeah, and of course, you hear the Akkad Mototogs. Oh, it's Envy giving the Nick some love. Everybody thinks Little Nick owns. I mean, he's a voice of Dota now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody just play the game.
I mean, you can't argue against it. When you got a voice line in the game, that's an automatic I win the argument card to play. So we'll see how well he performs here. Lil Nick, as well as Giant and Kara, already sort of moving out into the south side jungle a bit. Don't think they're in any position to run into Envy, but could look to get up maybe some early vision. Lil Nick's holding on to the ward. Kara's got a couple of sentries too, so there's some shenanigans they could get up to in the south side. They will drop the ward down there. That's actually a pretty deep one. A little bit deeper than usual. Normally we see those teams sort of focus maybe a little bit closer to these side camps, but they go all the way down to the south. That gets them a little bit of vision over the lane itself.
And I like that ward just because it's a little bit less obvious to snipe out those couriers. If you make the response a little bit too quickly, then sometimes it's just a little bit too free of a D ward, as well as giving Nick free vision over that medium camp. So if he ever gets Giant in a pretty safe spot, he can simply walk over, just spam it out with Sacred Arrow, get a little bit more farm than he otherwise would. And the ward enables it just a little bit more because the position of the Clockwork is really the most crucial thing here. But Husky, just razor sharp intuition, gets the D word, is not playing around. It's a little bit obvious, but it's a meta obvious thing. But Husky's on point.
Mm-hmm. Nice play with the D ward to start us off. Throws the sentry down as well to block out that camp. So this lane, at least early on, is looking like it's going to be relatively comfortable for Envy. There's not going to be any sort of side pulls. They've taken away that vision in the jungle, so it's just going to come down to whether Giant and Lil Nick can actually directly apply pressure, and that is at least going to be a possibility for them anytime you have them run in this lane. But you see Husky already trying to go to work with the battery assault. Lil Nick, unfortunately, missing with that arrow. Not sure if it would have been enough for a kill, but would have been a nice little bit of extra damage. But either way, Husky is going to be falling back. But this is really the name of the game for that clock. Just get in there, be annoying, just try and, well, distract as much as possible, although Lil Nick was able to get in for the courier snipe.
And it's Envy's courier too. He's going to eat a lot of damage from this battery assault, but I think he will be able to meet the waves here. Husky doesn't have any big kill threat here. Should be able to outrun him with those boots, but yeah, Nick doesn't want to take this into tower, but I think with Husky's play, he might force him to. So this isn't actually too bad for the Terrorblade.
Yeah, Giant's got to go all the way back to his tower. Envy's pretty much in the same position, getting the waves in between the tier 1 and the tier 2 down bot. So he's just going to be sort of chilling out. Last hitting with no significant opposition whatsoever. So a little bit of a strange one. Husky sort of initiates into that, but it's all going to work out relatively well. And now he's up to some more shenanigans here, trying to keep Giant away from these creeps. This bottom lane's just looking a little unconventional, but if it keeps a situation here where Envy can farm and Giant just has to sort of drift like he is, then you're going to be more than happy with it, I would assume, on the 4-zoomer side.
And okay, nice steal from Giant. That's going to salvage his lane a little bit here, but he lost a full wave because of that steal coming in from Nick. That's kind of sad. And now Husky is just playing this wave so well. He's just doing everything he needs to for his team, just making all of these forcing plays that are really just working out for him. It's honestly really fun to see because he's countering every single move that Giant and Lil Nick are trying to make and giving Eternal Envy just free farm. Because again, Eternal Envy got the wave behind his tower. This is going to be another wave denied to your off lane. This is just not a good situation for them.
Very nice play in the bottom lane so far. Meanwhile, we were talking about it a little bit in the draft about how weird it was going to be. Haven't really talked about it much until now, but that mid matchup, Gunnar going up against Kits on the Void Spirit. So far, not really a whole lot of separation between them last hit-wise, and Kits, I mean, he can do a little bit of damage, but you got to assume in most circumstances the Brew's going to be tanky enough to kind of walk off / ignore a lot of that aggression.
And I can only imagine that Kits will probably go for the Dissimulate build pretty soon here. You just want to farm as much as you can, especially in a lane where you very simply don't have enough damage to kill this Strength hero. He's just a little too tanky for you. That's where Kits will probably go for a little bit of a slower build. I can only imagine. The side lanes are very easy to gank, especially if you can get on top of this Keeper of the Light. That's probably going to be the lane that he's going to make an appearance in the most, but Gunnar, at the same time, is definitely keeping things even. Neither of these heroes can really walk over to that small camp without the other, or rather your opponent laner pushing your creep wave already into the tower. It's one thing that Brewmaster has always been pretty good at with the addition of Cinderbrew. You just nuke out these waves so quickly, even though he's only got 1 point in it.
Yeah, just kind of a funny situation, as you mentioned. Both mid laners kind of able to keep the other honest. No one can really disappear for all that long without suffering some consequences in terms of the equilibrium, so you kind of have to stay in your lane, at least, you know, through the first couple of minutes here, and we'll see who that benefits more. Meanwhile, Husky, thought for a second he was rotating mid. He's just going for another D-ward, so he is just really taking these eyes away from that 4 Gringos side. You see Lil Nick, though, I mean, still trying to do his best here, but at this point, there's not a whole lot he can do aggressively. He's looking for creeps instead, and now another courier snipe. Okay, taking out Huskies this time, so at least you're able to do a little bit of economic damage. It would have been nice if that had been Envy's again, but at least you get something for yourself and your team.
Yeah, and even though praising Husky for the D-wards, getting a lot of good vision down, he has separated himself from his Terrorblade whenever Envy decided to commit that meta, so you weren't really able to get aggressive on the Night Stalker, and I think Giant has been pretty happy with the past few minutes, as well as Nick doing Mirana things, griefing the enemy team's jungle. You see he's taken all the big ones, so once Envy does decide to make that jungle rotation, he's not going to be too happy, at least for the first minute he decides to start jungling. But at the same time, you look at his last hits, 26 and 16, even though they haven't been able to get a kill on this Night Stalker, he really hasn't been farming all too well either. It really has just been the level try and sap. Now that it's nighttime, maybe we'll see a little bit of a change, but really, it's still feeling like a waiting game coming from this Night Stalker.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, this is kind of what we had to expect, right? Giant, I don't know how much pressure he was going to be able to apply to a Terrorblade, especially with the Clockwork in that lane. So, as you said, the last hit numbers, not fantastic, but you're getting along, you're finding experience, and in the river, Husky's actually going to get jumped in on. Kits is the first one to sort of leave that middle lane. He didn't hit, though, with the Remnant, but it's not going to matter. Lil Nick actually did not steal the kill. Kits was able to get it. So first blood goes the way of 4 Gringos, and
what can you do?
We had sort of been talking up Husky throughout a lot of the early stages of this game. That time, though, a little bit too far forward, doesn't realize Kits is on him until it's too late, and well, it's a nice first kill for the 4 Gringos side. Kits is going to maybe jump that little bit ahead of Gunnar, although while he was going for that kill, Gunnar did clean up pretty much an entire creep wave on his own. So, not sure how much separation there's going to be there, but well, now we see a little bit of potential aggression. Gunnar, though, actually gets clipped by the arrow, so he had already gotten off that combo for the nuke damage. Didn't really think he was going to chase forward anyway, but now Z-Freak, he's just going to keep on going. Sending out those Illuminates multiple times, but now he's been caught. Kara, well, okay, caught was maybe a little bit too strong. My bad, he gets hit by a Nightmare, but then walks away, but lots of heroes rotating into this middle lane already.
And it was a good rotation from 4 Zoomers. They want to get aggressive with the cart. They know that the Void Spirit is pretty low on mana after the kill into their Clockwork. I think it's very lucky that Kara was unable to keep him locked down there, because otherwise Kit's just simply cast 2 spells and I think he goes down. But unfortunately made the decision to heal up with his DD just a little bit too late. So although they kill the cart, nothing too much coming out from them. But unfortunately, look at Terrorblade farming a huge stack right now with Z-Freak. I don't know if he can take the Ancient stack. That's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. Yeah, they kill bottom at the same time, but they're not contesting the stack, and this is something that they definitely would want to make a rotation for, but it just feels like they're a little bit too behind their opponents at this stage of the game. I do think Envy's too weak, though, for a 3-stack. It's just Terrorblade is not one of those heroes, unfortunately.
Yeah, you see him building his way, though, towards that Dragonlance, so maybe the stats will sort of boost him up a little bit more, but for the time being, he's going to step away from the Ancient stack. Meanwhile, DNM, he's going for some stacked camps of his own, making use of that barrage to just try and clear through it as quickly as possible. The sort of new era of Clinks with that change. But while he's farming, you do see 4 Zoomers trying their best to focus on the objectives. They're pushing their way top, looking for that tier 1. The glyph has already worn off, so really they should get this. I mean, Kara is hanging out, but there's absolutely nothing he can do to really stop that, as the tower will fall, and this is where that Beastmaster is going to potentially start hitting his stride. He's got level 6, he's taken that tower, so he can look for kills, he can look for pushes across those other lanes, and really just try and get 4 Zoomers that early advantage.
And really, it's just very clean rotations from 4 Zoomers. They are the team with a little bit more experience here. You get the glyph mid, you decide to go top, get the tower for free. It will make pushing this mid tower a little bit more difficult, especially because you don't have that card available to you. It's just Gunnar doing a little bit of damage, but here's the Beastmaster. How do they want to defend this tower, or do they just decide to give it up? Because right now, I think with the position...
instead, actually. Hits and Kara pushing it onto him. It's a decent opening, but the problem is Envy has his own illusions. He takes the Nightmare off of himself, and that play kind of falls apart. Kit's, still sticking around just in case Envy maybe overcommits, but with the reinforcements nearby from 4 Zoomers, this is not a safe play for 4 Gringos to make, and they are just going to back up. This is potentially giving away a lot of control in this north side jungle. You are losing farming space for that Clinks, and giving it over to a Terrorblade who does not need any extra help farming.
Yeah, and we haven't even seen a promo split be committed yet. We have seen really no aggression coming out of 4 Gringos' side just yet. It has to come from Kits and the Night Stalker, but they're playing this slower. We're going to farm up, we're going to get our levels, we're going to be down the exchange here. They're just staying bottom to try and get this tower, and maybe they get the punish on Z-Freak in a second here, but without any catch coming naturally from their heroes, it has to be Kits. If Kits doesn't start off that fight, there's not going to be a successful grip. There isn't going to be a successful arrow. And Kits, ooh.
Very careful. Moo not in range for the roar. Husky not level 6, so dodges a bit of a bullet on that one, but he's going to get away, and he's going to get this Arcane Rune bottled up. So maybe this is the moment where they look to get a bit more aggressive on that 4 Gringos side. They've got the only 2 kills of the game, but it hasn't really been consistent aggression from them, but now Moo, very far forward. He's going to drop the roar, though. They're looking for Kara immediately. If they can just get that Nightmare out of the fight right away, that would go a long way towards helping him out, but they don't get the kill. Now Moo is actually kind of trapped by his teammates' cogs. That got a little bit unfortunate. Now Husky himself is on the run. Kits, though, not going to let him go, pulling him back in with the Remnant. So this one's looking pretty good for the side of 4 Gringos, but Gunnar does get off that Primal Split. They're going to try and track Giant down. They need just a little bit more damage, but the Dark Ascension flight is allowing him to get away, at least for now. Gunnar loses vision before he can actually get the Cyclone down. And Giant's going to try to TP. Ooh. I like the instinct, trying to TP away there, but the Dark Ascension ends at the wrong time. And Gunnar is able to track down that kill, but you take down Giant. You did lose a couple of heroes on your own side, Moo and Husky's Clockwork being taken away. So it wasn't quite the cleanest of initiation, really, from either side, but those are the kind of plays, if you're 4 Gringos, you need to try for more of that. Keep the pressure on. Don't let 4 Zoomers sort of just sit back and free farm on that TB.
And DNM is now able to take this Ancient stack. He's got to be a little bit careful if he sees a bunch of heroes running at him, but that was really successful from 4 Gringos. You take down the Beastmaster, you defend your stack, DNM was farming it, and Burning Barrage is not an okay spell either. Talk about coddle. Burning Barrage really isn't okay. Needs to be modified maybe just a little bit. But during all of that, even though I think it was pretty successful for 4 Gringos, you've got this Terrorblade on the other side of the map, occupying the space that Moo would otherwise want to farm. And now you've got this huge Ancient stack that they're going to try and kill here, and here we go. I think they've got it this time.
Yeah, Envy, with a couple more levels and the Dragonlance finished off, should have the strength to get through it. The problem is, here comes the push from 4 Gringos. They are going to try and scout this out. I think Moo may have seen them. That Sentry Ward gives them the sort of radius of vision, so may not be as stealthy as they think they are here, but well, that really wasn't so much a maneuver for a gank, more like more like just a move for vision. And they get up onto that ramp, they see the presence of multiple heroes, they can probably guess what's going down there, and with just your Mirana and your Bane, they don't really want the fight, but it's information. At the very least, they know that Envy's still in there. He just took a stack, so he's probably continuing to build himself up, but the question now is, what do you do with that information? They need to try and make a move here. Giant has the Ascension up in just a few seconds, so maybe that is their window to attack.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because it's that decisiveness that some of these newer squads don't have. Their options are, oh, nobody's showing, they're probably committing to take this stack with a bunch of heroes, or they're smoke ganking us, but they're not top, so maybe we should just hit mid, but instead they try to contest the stack, so they fall behind just a little bit more. But it's those small victories that end up being massive problems because all of this space has just been given over to this Terrorblade, and there is no trade. Your bottom lane isn't all the way pushed in, your mid tower, you're not able to put any pressure on it, and this is where the walls kind of start closing in on you if you're 4 Gringos, as this top tower is going to be the next objective, or just occupying your entire jungle where they need to get a little bit more crafty with where they play. Otherwise, they're never going to find an opening.
Hawk flies over in the east side jungle as well, so 4 Zoomers, I mean, it feels a little bit weird. We're talking about this, the score line is 1-4 in 4 Gringos' favor, but just in terms of the vision, the map control, the amount of space that 4 Zoomers have at their disposal, it just feels like they've got so much more to work with than their opponents. So maybe they haven't quite seized complete control of the game, but if things continue at this rate, we may be looking at that kind of scenario, and still a little bit surprised that we are not seeing 4 Gringos take that sort of decisive action that you were mentioning. Of course, we are potentially seeing them making a move later on. Kits is working his way towards the Aghanim Scepter. He's only about 1,200 away from finishing that one off. So with the upgrade to the Resonant Pulse, maybe that's when they look to make their move. Maybe DNM is going to feel comfortable enough. I don't think he'll have the full BKB by that point, but could at least get himself the Ogre Axe or the Hammer for the damage or the durability, and maybe at that point they try to make a move, but it feels like it's got to come sometime, ET. They can't just sit back for too much longer.
And this is a little bit of an issue with their lineup. They need more items than their opponents. 4 Zoomers is so efficient with all of the little items they have. It's just simply the HOD, the level 6, yeah, the hookshot top.
They had the vision from the Hawk. They go in with the hookshot into the Cog, push back into the Roar. That's a nice TP in from Giant, but it's a little bit too late to help out, as they will lose Little Nick, and now Giant, does he really want this? Kits is in, Kara's coming over, DMN's making his way over as well, so they really do want this fight. They're going straight onto Moo. They are going to drop him low, they finish him off. Now they've got Husky isolated further to the north, trying to keep him trapped up in the tree line, but Husky, with the Cogs, actually trapped Kits, but I don't know if that's going to be enough. Giant is still trying to hit him up, but Gunnar comes in with that Spirit, going to be able to save the day while his other Spirit actually finished off Kara, so the multitasking there from the Brewmaster is fantastic, and they may look for a little bit more, but Giant flying away with the Ascension, getting himself over the tree line. DNM's going to be there to just try and push them back a little bit more with that damage, and it looks like that is going to be the end of the fight, but, well, you sacrifice Moo for basically 2 kills there. As 4 Zoomers still looking good, but I don't know if they're willing to stick around much longer. You already see them starting to fall back in the aftermath of that fight.
And now this is their moment. It's nighttime. You don't have Dark Ascension. If 4 Gringos were going to get aggressive, you need to go where there's no split, there's no meta. Eternal Envy will not show up to a fight. He even feels confident enough to TP bottom and show himself there. So they know that the Terrorblade's alone bottom, but they need to find their opening here. And Kits isn't able to get that DD, but they've got to find this play.
There's going to be the Fiend's Grip in from Kara. He's pushed back, but that doesn't actually cancel it. So Gunnar, he's still locked down. He's silenced up. He doesn't have the Primal Split anyway, but not even going to get the chance. He'll be taken down. Kits gets the kill. Now they're in onto Husky, trying to track that Clockwork. They should be able to get him. Just a little bit more damage will do the trick. And, well, ET, you said it. It's nighttime. Envy's not there. There's no Primal Split. Now is your moment. And they push in to grab 2 in the river. And the Kits really doesn't even suffer all that much damage. He was able to bottle up that regen rune right at the very start of the fight. Held it pretty much till the end. So if you're 4 Gringos, now you're in a pretty good position to try and capitalize off the back of this. Ideally, the push would come onto this mid-tier 1, but their creep wave is a little bit too far back, so I don't think they actually get the opening they wanted, but it's a solid fight for them, and they need to continue that aggression, especially during the night, when the Night Stalker can be really kind of the leading man for them into a lot of these engagements.
And that was highly unfortunate. I think Z-Freak bounced the Bane just slightly further away from the Clockwork, so that grip lasted a few more seconds longer than really, ideally, it could ever last versus Clockwork. But instead, just that one little misplay spells Gunner's first death here. Fortunately for him, 500 more gold, you have that Aghanim Scepter, you get to throw out one of your ultis just to get the vision for the fight, and then the second ulti can be actually getting into that engagement. But I think it was a little bit too much confidence from Four Zoomers there. You show a hero bottom, of course Envy doesn't even want to show up to that fight, but if you show somebody bottom, it's really crazy to show 3 heroes mid, but I also think it was a really nice grab from Four Gringos. What?
Envy, you are not ready.
Tell me someone saw that.
Gunner's still not back in the server, so not sure what happened there, but the Gunner does drop out, so we are going to be waiting for him to get back in here. That's a little bit of a strange one, but Gunner should be back in now, and we can actually say that his team is ready to go, as it looks like we will be resuming this one just as soon as 4 Gringos are good to go.
Yeah, and once this game does get back underway, I really think finish off this top tower. They're even pinging it right now. There are 3 Eternal Envy illusions hitting it as well. Once they get this objective, it gets so much easier for them to play around this top side, especially taking that shrine away from the dire side is so important when it comes to contesting this Roche. Something that once they get a few more items, whether or not it's that Helm of the Overlord finished up on Mu, or it is going to be a bigger item up on Eternal Envy, they can always go back to that pit. That's always going to be an option available to them. And fortunately, they do get it. They will trade their mid tower for this, but this is just the price of taking really the majority of your opponent's map now.
And kits, there we go, yeah. Able to make it happen in the middle lane. So at least they're getting something, but as you said, it comes at a cost elsewhere on the map. That tier 3 getting pushed down, not going to take really any significant damage, as Lil Nick was able to pull the creep wave away, but we were talking about sort of map control opportunities going for Zoomers away. This is exactly what we're talking about. So much of the map is open to them. And for Gringos, well, they've got a little bit of the map for themselves, but not necessarily because they have control of it, just because for Zoomers are so busy being sort of preoccupied elsewhere on the map. But, Alright, tomato, tomato. If you have the space, you might as well make use of it. You see Giant going to work, very nearly done with that BKB. So take whatever opportunities that you can get. Try and find those items. We mentioned earlier on in the game, they're a squad that sort of needs to be ahead of their opponents, item-wise, with this particular roster that they've put together. So we'll see what they can do fight-wise. The kill count has been, honestly, relatively low to this point, but for Zoomers on the attack, they're going to push their way onto Kara, trapping him up inside of the cogs, and I don't think there's anyone here who's really going to be able to immediately help him. Kara's just going to be sort of left on his own here. Should be taken down, and yeah, no one else is really pushing in. Giant, he thought about it for a moment, but at that point, your BKB hasn't been delivered yet. You'd be fighting into 4 or 5. Not really worth the risk.
Yeah, and you do have this BKB finished up on the Clinks as well, so you want to start taking these engagements pretty soon here. I think you have a full BKB coming out for the Night Stalker as well. That is going to be the really strong timing that's going to hit right before you have the full Scotty finished up on the Terrorblade. I would have thought that DNM would have gone for that Scotty, try to greed out for that item a little bit sooner because of how effective it is versus really the Beastmaster and the Terrorblade. Once you get Scotty on this hero, it feels impossible to siege into those buildings, but now they are fast-forwarding their timer just a little bit here, but double BKB, they need to feel strong enough to take these fights, and I think they just need to start running at their opponents. Even though that meta is available, they can't keep giving away these objectives, as well as look at how split 4 Zoomers are right now. Envy is relatively alone in the bottom lane, but they're just not making the decision to jump soon enough, and they might catch Husky bottom, but I think if they get Husky, they're going to be very unhappy because, again, it's so much time wasted just for a Clockwork kill if this is all that they can get for their smoke. They might not even get him.
The 5-man smoke as well, you really do need to hit something with this kind of play, but Husky's making his way not just away from the gank, but towards his teammates. So now we're not even into the realm of you might miss an opportunity. Now you're pushing into a team fight in its entirety, and this is going to get pretty risky for them, but they're going to try to make their move. Husky already taken down. They actually locked down the Beastmaster there with that Fiend's Grip, but Kara doesn't actually live long enough to really keep that one going. He will fall. Kit's now dead as well. Lil Nick is trying to fall back, but DNM is actually the target. They trap him inside of the cogs. The Will-O-Wisp keeps him from running, and that was unfortunately about the way we probably anticipated that fight going. It's a little bit too much. They run into pretty much everyone, and now Giant, he's going to get caught out as well. Husky does trap him up momentarily, but the Dark Ascension is going to allow him to fly over it, but at this point, they are chasing. They've got the urn down onto him. They're going to get some vision there, and that might just be enough to take him down. Yes, it is. Yep. Gunner's able to get the kill, and that is 4 dead. Lil Nick, the only survivor, is he was able to jump away, but that is pretty much a disaster. That's a 5-man smoke, and you lose 4 and get... Well, I mean, they got Husky, right? Clockwork died and bought back, but that's just not going to be enough.
No, and it's the exact type of Dota that he wants to play, and while you did get your item timings, it just doesn't feel like it's enough right now. They're playing maybe 5 minutes past their true peak there, where they had the Aghanim Scepter finished up on kits. You just simply don't have enough levels on this Void Spirit right now to feel like you are the monster Void Spirit that everybody knows about. We're going to need to see him just kind of bide his time now, pushing these waves, but the problem being, Force Zoomers isn't going to allow you that time, and unfortunately, now you're playing into Scotty Terrorblade. It's going to be that much more difficult. If the Terrorblade is ever hitting the Clinks, it is going to feel absolutely awful for DNM. He's going to need to Skeleton Walk or BKB away. He just can't fight one-on-one versus that hero. He needs to be a little bit trickier until he can finish a Scotty of his own, but that is a really long time away, as well as just the Aghanim Scepter on Z-Freak, just absolutely tearing him apart. I think that was why he wasn't able to get his BKB off on the Skeleton. It's just an unfortunate situation because now Envy, again, he feels so confident to just let his team take the entire side of your map. He's completely confident in their team fight capabilities, and okay, here we go.
There's Husky in again, every single time, throwing his face into the fight. Kara gonna get taken down immediately, and now Kits, he's just got to run away. Husky even dropped low, but Envy actually swapped the HP with him, using a defensive Sunder to keep his buddy alive. That allows Force Zoomers to continue pushing forward, and Kits, I mean, he just can't get away there. He tried using the Astral Step charges at his disposal, but once that's gone, the slow came through, and he just couldn't get himself away. And at this point, for Zoomers, this just feels like they have complete control. They're only 2 kills ahead, but a 6k net worth lead, and they're knocking on the front door of their opponent's base. And yeah, what can you do right now? If you're 4 Gringos, what are the options? They don't have the Void Spirit up for 20, so they may just have to sit back and watch this go.
Yeah, and pushing onto the high ground now, they get the glyph. It doesn't matter. They have the Ancient Black Dragon as well. He could go split off, push in another wave for free if they really needed to, but I think this is just going to be
Kara.
more or less the end of the game. Kara, it's so sad.
This is just bullying. That's not fair. Kara gets taken down. Tried to Nightmare himself. Didn't matter. Envy removes it with one of the illusions, keeps on pushing forward, and the Bane's dead. The entire middle lane of Rax is taken, and Envy says, I still got time on meta. Let's go for 2. Why not? Basically dare 4 Gringos to come forward and actually try to stop them. And DNM, I mean, he's doing his best, throwing the barrage in there for some damage, but it really just feels like they are so much behind the 8 ball right now.
Yeah, and they need to go. Pretty much right now, they need to find a situation where Envy is separated from his teammates. If they can get on top of Gunner first, oh man, once Gunner gets this BKB, I think the game might just be over though. Then you lose your guaranteed silence. You don't have enough control. Giant doesn't even have his blink target. He went back to reassemble his Echo Saber. He had to disassemble it for that BKB timing, and they're popping on Envy, but they don't want him. They want someone else.
There's the roar.
No.
Giant gets locked down immediately. And I don't really think they can do much more. Kits is in the middle of that fight, but he really doesn't want to be. He has no means of getting out, though. No defensive item, no BKB, so he's just locked down and finished off. And at this point, the 4 Gringos, they're just getting absolutely run over. DNM's going to try to get himself out of this, but they've got the vision on him. His BKB is going to be wearing off in just a few more moments as it does go down, and DNM will go down as well. He will fall, even loses his courier on the back end there. Meanwhile, the dive bomb from the Hawk keeps Kara from running away. And 4 Zoomers, I mean, they just really clean sweep that. Once again, Lil Nick is able to get away, but just like last time, it's because he kind of cut and ran when he had the chance. So 4 Zoomers with a definitive teamfight win, and now they're looking to push onto their opponent's high ground once again.
And I can only imagine we're going to see GG pretty soon here. They're probably discussing the game a little bit if they aren't going to call it in a few seconds, because there's just no way they can win anymore. I think it was just a little bit too clean from 4Zoomers. Really no time wasted from them. Maybe a little bit of some risky TPs coming out from Terrorblade, but other than that, I just don't think 4Gringos were able to hit their timings, and you miss your timings versus a team like 4Zoomers. I don't want to say I was expecting this, but this was already going to be a tough battle from the start if you're 4Gringos.
Once again, it comes back to that same old cliche over and over again. The roster, or the lineup rather, the draft looks okay. It's always going to come down to that execution, and 4Gringos really didn't manage to do what we thought they would need to take advantage of the heroes that they had put together, and you can see the results. Just past 26 minutes, the GG will finally be called, but the Ancient will explode, and 4Zoomers will take the win, starting off this group stage run with a pretty dominant showing.
Yeah, and I think now, if you're 4Gringos, you've got another game here. Try out a completely different draft. Just throw something against the wall. See if you can find something that sticks, because this was really not the best showing. It was a really slow-burning game, a game that I think, while they were even net worth-wise, even ahead net worth-wise on a few of their heroes there, you were giving up a lot of structures. You're giving up a lot of buildings to a team that really didn't need that much farm. You saw as soon as you had that Helm of the Dominator done on the Beastmaster, as soon as you had really 2 Ags components on the Brewmaster, their heroes are just a little bit too efficient with less gold. They just run at you when they don't need their items, and they win the team fight anyway. I think 4Gringos, they had an opportunity maybe once or twice. They had their strong tick-ups. They had this opportunity where they had double BKB, Aghanim Scepter finished on kits, and they pushed into the high ground. If that fight goes a little bit better for them, I think this game looks a lot different, because that is really what spelled this game just tumbling down, because they immediately went to Roche, then they went to mid, then they went to top. That was really the moment where this game turned from what could have been an even game into just a complete wash. And I think now, for Gringos, look at your drafts a little bit more, try and get something that you feel a little bit more confident with. Of course, you're playing with the stand-in. I'm sure this loss won't hurt them mentally very much at all, but you're playing versus the big boys. It's time to draft like the big boys. It's time to play like the big boys.
And unfortunate that unfortunate that it sort of goes down that way, that they have to play 4Zoomers in their first matchup of the group stage, but you were going to have to play them eventually, right? Sure, you would probably prefer a little bit later on down the line when you're maybe a bit more prepared, but as you said, ET, you're going up against some of the tougher, more experienced squads in the region. Now's the time to really step up and show your strength. So we'll see if 4Gringos can get something a little bit better for Game 2, work their way back into the series for that 1-1 draw, or if you're going to be seeing 4Zoomers pulling off the clean 2-0 sweep to kickstart their own run. So Game 2 should be coming your way in just a couple of minutes, so we will take a short break, and we'll be back for that next match. See you then.